In 1487, a glassblower named Marco Barovier left the island of Murano at dawn with a small leather case containing 3 glass rods of a color no other craftsman in Europe could produce, walked across the Rialto Bridge and sold them to a Flemish merchant for 40 ducats before the bells of San Marco had rung terce. He was home before noon. Number 12 on this list is the exact method Marco used to monetize knowledge the Republic of Venice had made legally impossible to share with foreigners, and yet he had found a way to extract its full value without leaving the city. Number 7 was so profitable that the Council of Ten documented it in their secret records as a threat to the state monopoly, not because it was dishonest, but because it was too clever. And number 1, the income method that made more ordinary Venetians independently wealthy than any other single practice in the 15th and 16th centuries, required no boat, no glass, no spice, and no connection to any of the great trading families. These are 20 forgotten side hustles that made ordinary Venetians rich during the Renaissance, practiced in the back rooms of the Rialto, on the steps of the Arsenal, and in the shadow of the Ca d'Oro, by men and women who understood that the richest city in the world was also the most structurally generous to anyone sharp enough to find its gaps. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, because what ordinary Venetians understood about extracting value from a sophisticated economic system is the most practical financial education the Renaissance left behind. Let us count them down. Number 20, gondolier route ownership. The gondola was not merely a boat in Renaissance Venice, it was a licensed franchise, and the most productive canal routes were monopolized by established gondolier families who treated them as inheritable commercial assets. A gondolier who operated on the Rialto ferry crossing could transport over 200 passengers per day at 1 soldo per crossing in the mid-15th century, earning between 10 and 14 soldi per day net of the small license fee. That was the equivalent of a skilled craftsman's daily wage earned by a man with a pole, a boat he had built himself, and knowledge of the tides. The most valuable routes changed hands between gondolier families, for sums representing several years of income, and the families who controlled 3 or 4 routes simultaneously built small dynastic incomes that outlasted any individual craftsman's working life. When a route was too busy for one man, the route owner hired assistants and took a portion of their earnings, becoming an operator rather than a worker, the earliest model of what we might now call franchise income. Number 19, Rialto Market Information Brokering. The Rialto Market was the commercial intelligence center of the known world, and the men who sat at its edges, who knew which merchant had just received letters from Alexandria, which galley had arrived with a reduced cargo, which commodity had unexpectedly tightened in supply, sold that information in a completely unregulated market. An information broker at the Rialto in 1480 needed no capital, no license, and no noble patron. He needed a good memory, a sociable manner, the ability to speak several languages, and the discipline to be present every morning before the serious traders arrived. The fee for reliable commercial intelligence ran from a few soldi for a minor price observation to several ducats for advanced knowledge of an arriving galley's cargo. A well-connected broker who supplied 3 or 4 pieces of actionable intelligence per day earned between 1 and 2 ducats per week from pure information arbitrage, placing him in the comfortable artisan class without owning anything more than his own knowledge. Number 18, Arsenal Subcontracting Work. The Arsenal di Venezia was the largest industrial facility in the world in the 15th century, capable of fitting out a fully armed war galley in a single day. The arsenal also required enormous quantities of specialist supplies and subcontracted components that smaller workshops could produce independently and sell to the state facility. A Venetian rope maker who could produce ship-grade cordage to arsenal specifications, a smith who made standardized fittings, a sailmaker who cut canvas to the arsenal's measured patterns, could build a steady subcontract income rivaling full arsenal employment. The subcontractor's advantage was independence. He set his own hours, managed his own workshop, and could sell to private shipbuilders as well as the arsenal, diversifying his income across multiple buyers. The most successful arsenal subcontractors of the 15th century expanded into small workshops, employing several journeymen, and earned incomes, placing them in the upper artisan class. Number 17, manuscript copying and commercial scribal services. Before printing presses arrived in Venice in the 1460s, and for a generation afterward, while print had not yet replaced manuscript for specialized purposes, professional copyists who could produce clean, accurate copies of legal documents, commercial contracts, and merchant account books commanded fees that reflected their genuinely scarce skill. A commercial scribe in Venice in the 1440s charged between 1 and 4 ducats per quire of copied text, depending on complexity and speed required. A productive scribe who copied 15 to 20 pages per day and maintained a roster of regular commercial clients from the Rialto merchant community could earn between 2 and 3 ducats per week, placing him well into the professional class without any investment beyond his quills, ink, and the time spent learning to write a clear and reliable hand. Number 16. The second-hand book and manuscript trade. Venice became the center of European printing by 1500, and with the proliferation of printed books came a parallel market in second-hand volumes. A second-hand book dealer who understood the relative rarity and value of different texts, who knew which scholars wanted which authors and which merchants needed which technical manuals, could build a profitable trading operation from a market stall near the Rialto with starting capital of 20 or 30 ducats. The margins on rare manuscripts were extraordinary. A unique humanist text acquired from the estate of a deceased scholar for 5 ducats might sell to a collector for 50. Even the trade in common printed books offered reliable margins of 30 to 50% for a dealer who could assess quality, source cheaply from printers clearing their backstock, and sell effectively to the growing Venetian reading public. Number 15. Fish and produce market speculation. The Rialto fish and produce markets opened before dawn, and prices were set by the supply arriving that particular day. A merchant with modest capital and early intelligence about what was arriving, who knew that a storm had kept fishing boats in for 2 days and the fish market would be short, could purchase the limited supply at opening prices and sell at the higher price the shortage would create by mid-morning. This commodity micro-speculation required no license, no guild membership, and no established commercial relationship beyond the ability to buy and sell in a public market. A careful operator with good market intelligence and the discipline to act quickly earned consistent returns unavailable to any other participant in the same transaction. First pattern break. Here is where things get interesting, because the next entries describe not individual trades, but financial systems that ordinary Venetians had developed to participate in the city's commercial wealth without belonging to the great merchant families. Venice invented several instruments of modern capitalism, and it made some of them accessible to people who had never seen a galley's cargo manifest. Number 14. Colleganza Investment Partnerships. The colleganza was the legal instrument that made Venice rich before the great trading families had consolidated their dominance, and in its classic form, it allowed any Venetian with spare capital to invest in a merchant voyage and receive a proportional share of the profits without traveling or managing the trade. A sedentary investor who placed 50 ducats in a colleganza agreement with a traveling merchant contributed 2/3 of the capital and received 2/3 of the profit. The traveling merchant bore all the physical risk and received 1/3 of the profit. The arrangement was legally documented, publicly registered, and enforceable under Venetian commercial law. A Venetian craftsman who had accumulated 100 ducats could place 2 or 3 colleganza investments simultaneously, diversifying across different voyages, and earn returns of 20 to 30% on successful ventures. The colleganza was the Renaissance equivalent of a mutual fund accessible to the Venetian working class. Number 13. Money changing and currency arbitrage. Venice sat at the intersection of the major European and Mediterranean monetary systems and the constant flow of foreign merchants bringing silver ducats, gold florins, Genoese lire, and Byzantine hyperpyra created persistent opportunities for anyone who understood exchange rates across multiple currency systems. A licensed money changer at the Rialto in the 15th century earned income from 3 distinct sources: the exchange fee charged on each transaction, the arbitrage spread between buying and selling rates, and interest on short-term loans advanced to merchants who needed cash before their own funds arrived. A productive money changer with reliable intelligence on exchange rates in other cities could earn 3 to 5 ducats per week, placing him firmly in the professional class. Number 12. Murano Glass Knowledge Licensing. The glassblowers of Murano held the most jealously protected trade secret in Renaissance Europe, backed by capital punishment for any glassblower who attempted to work for a foreign prince. But Marco Barovier and his contemporaries found a way to extract the value of their knowledge without leaving Venice. They sold technical consulting services to Venetian merchants, setting up glass operations in other cities, using locally recruited workers, providing the knowledge but not the labor, and extracting fees that reflected the genuine scarcity of their expertise without crossing the legal line. A senior Murano glassblower serving as technical consultant to 3 or 4 such operations simultaneously could earn between 5 and 20 ducats per consultation, amounts rivaling the income of the most successful Rialto merchants for a few days of carefully managed knowledge transfer. Number 11. Silk throwing and finishing subcontracting. Venice was one of the major European silk finishing centers of the 15th and 16th centuries, and the workers, who owned their own throwing mills or dyeing vats and offered finishing services to major silk merchants on a piece rate basis, were in a significantly better position than those working for a single employer. A silk thrower who owned his own equipment and contracted with 4 or 5 different merchants could earn between 2 and 3 ducats per week and accumulate capital for expansion, while an equivalent worker employed directly by one merchant was dependent on that single relationship. Number 10. Notarial witnessing and legal document services. Below the level of the licensed notary, there was a broader class of literate individuals who earned income as witnesses to commercial transactions, as clerks preparing draft documents for notarial signature, and as informal legal advisors helping merchants understand their rights under Venetian commercial law. A literate and legally knowledgeable individual positioned near the Rialto, offering these informal pre-notarial services, could earn a steady income of 1 to 2 ducats per week from transactions that busy licensed notaries were happy to hand off to reliable assistants. Number 9. Property rental in the trading districts. Venice established the world's first formal Jewish ghetto in 1516, and property within it was immediately valuable because the Jewish community was required to live there and had no choice of location. More broadly, property ownership near the Rialto market, the Arsenal gates, and the major church squares generated reliable rental income that insulated property owners from the volatility of trade. A Venetian craftsman who owned a single small shop or room near the Rialto could earn 4 to 6 ducats per year in rental income, representing a reliable return of 10 to 15% on the property's assessed value. The families who accumulated Venetian rental property systematically, reinvesting trade income into bricks and water rights, built the most durable middle-class fortunes in the city. Second pattern break. This next one is where the math gets fascinating, because the next entries describe how Venice's position at the center of the Mediterranean information economy created income opportunities for people who had no physical goods to trade, but understood that knowledge, language, and access were commodities as real as pepper or silk. Number 8. Translation and interpreting services for merchant houses. Venice was genuinely multilingual in a way no other European city matched in the 15th century, and the men who could move fluently between Venetian, Italian, Greek, Arabic, Turkish, and the major European vernaculars were worth significant money to merchant houses negotiating with suppliers and buyers across the known world. A Venetian interpreter who could accompany a merchant to meetings with Ottoman suppliers, draft letters in Arabic, and negotiate price in both cultural registers was not merely a linguistic tool, but a cultural broker whose knowledge added genuine value to every transaction. A skilled interpreter serving the major Venetian merchant houses in the late 15th century earned between 2 and 4 ducats per week, plus expenses during active negotiating periods. Number 7. State contract intelligence and public tender advisory. The Republic of Venice spent enormous sums annually on public construction, military supplies, and provisioning, awarding contracts through a procurement process public in name but requiring specific knowledge to navigate effectively. Individuals who understood the timing of procurement announcements, the preferences of the procuratori, and the technical requirements that would make a bid acceptable could advise merchants on how to structure successful bids in exchange for a fee or a share of the resulting contract. A well-connected advisory operative who successfully guided 3 or 4 suppliers to major state contracts per year could earn between 20 and 50 ducats annually in fees, a comfortable professional income with no capital at risk. Number 6. Grain and wine speculation during shortage periods. Venice imported almost all of its grain from the eastern Mediterranean and the Po Valley, and periodic shortages caused by bad harvests or disrupted shipping created price spikes that a merchant with forward intelligence and available capital could profit from systematically. A grain speculator with connections in the terra firma agricultural districts who could receive advance notice of a harvest failure could purchase existing grain stocks at normal prices and sell at the elevated shortage price with returns of 30 to 60% on invested capital in a single transaction. Third pattern break. Here is where the story becomes personal, because the next entries are not about financial instruments or commercial systems. They are about the specific physical and intellectual skills that ordinary Venetians turned into income streams so reliable that the families who mastered them built multi-generational comfort from the most unlikely starting materials. Number 5. Arsenal Gate Catering and Provisioning. The arsenal employed between 1,000 and 2,000 permanent workers throughout the 15th and 16th centuries, and these workers needed food, drink, and basic supplies during their working days. The women who operated food stalls near the arsenal gates, who cooked soup and bread and maintained regular relationships with the arsenalati, built incomes as stable as the arsenal itself. A food vendor with a permanent position near the arsenal main gate in the 1480s earned between 10 and 15 soldi per day from regular customers who ate the same meal at the same stall every working day, generating between 15 and 20 ducats per year from a woman with a fire, a pot, and the knowledge of what the workers wanted to eat. Number 4. The glass bead and costume jewelry trade. While the great Murano glassblowers produced magnificent luxury pieces, a parallel economy in mass-produced glass beads operated at the lower end of the market and was accessible to small workshop operators who lacked the technical mastery required for fine artistic glass. Glass beads were produced in enormous quantities for export to West Africa and the Americas after 1492, and the small bead workshops that supplied this trade employed a few workers and returned reliable profits to their owners without requiring closely guarded technical secrets. A bead workshop owner in the early 16th century, employing 2 assistants, could produce and sell enough glass beads to earn between 40 and 60 ducats per year from a relatively modest capital investment. Number 3. Silk design and pattern selling. The silk weavers of Venice worked from designs that determined the pattern, color, and structure of the final fabric, and the designers who produced these patterns occupied a specialized and well-compensated position in the silk industry. A skilled pattern designer who could produce complex floral and geometric designs that wealthy Venetian households demanded for their furnishing fabrics could sell a single successful design to multiple weavers simultaneously, collecting fees from each while retaining ownership of the design. A productive designer who created 3 or 4 new patterns per year and sold each to 4 or 5 weavers earned between 20 and 40 ducats annually from pure intellectual property income, with no physical labor beyond the initial creative work. Number 2. The money lending and pawn operation. Below the level of the formal Rialto banking houses and the Jewish loan banks of the ghetto, there was a substantial informal credit market in which Venetian artisans, small merchants, and householders borrowed small sums against pledged goods at short terms. A small-scale Venetian moneylender who operated a modest pawn operation from his home, lending between 1 and 10 ducats at a time against pledged tools, clothing, and household goods, could earn returns of 20 to 40% per annum on his employed capital, compounding modest savings into a genuinely significant business over a decade of careful operation. Number 1. The commission agent and factor network. At the very top of this list sits the income method that made more ordinary Venetians independently wealthy than any other single practice of the Renaissance, not because it was the most dramatic, but because it was the most accessible, the most scalable, and the most reliably rewarding to consistent and capable practitioners over the long run of a career. The commission agent, called a censile in Venetian commercial language, acted as intermediary between buyers and sellers who did not know each other, earning a percentage of the transaction value for introducing the parties, facilitating the negotiation, and ensuring the transaction was completed. The censile needed no capital beyond the working expenses of maintaining a visible presence at the Rialto and the social network to bring both sides of a transaction together. He charged between 1 and 3% of the transaction value on each deal he brokered, and a productive censile, who arranged 3 or 4 transactions per day in the active Rialto market, could earn between 2 and 5 ducats per week from pure intermediary income. Over a working life of 30 years, the most successful censile accumulated enough to invest in colleganza partnerships, purchase rental property, and educate their children into the notarial and legal professions previously accessible only to established families. These 20 forgotten side hustles share a single insight that the Republic of Venice embedded into its commercial culture more completely than any other society of the period. Value does not reside only in the physical goods that pass through a market. It resides equally in the knowledge of what those goods are worth, in the relationships that connect willing buyers to willing sellers, in the information that arrives before the market has processed it, and in the skills that make complex transactions possible for parties who could not complete them independently. The gondolier who knew the tides, the information broker who knew the galley schedules, the censile who knew both sides of every transaction, All of them were participating in the same insight: find where value is latent and make it flow. Try one principle from this list this week. Identify where in your own economy value is latent because two parties who need each other have not yet been introduced. Position yourself at that gap and charge a fair price for the introduction. Your Venetian ancestors built the Renaissance on exactly this foundation. The knowledge is still here. They knew, now you know too.